And welcome to Believe in Chargers with the great Lorenzo Neal, Matt Money Smith here. Day before we are recording this the day before the San Francisco Chargers preseason game number 2. I was out at the joint practice yesterday. Lo, big thank you to our friends at FanDuel putting this thing on. We'll get to the odds and some of the props out there in just a minute. But big news yesterday, bad news yesterday. As of right now, we still don't have the exact state of the injury, but it happened right in front of me. It did not look good. I'll turn it over to you, Lo. When you lose a starter, when you lose someone like Tyler Biadasz, someone that we've celebrated, this entire offseason, their number one signing, your center, compared to what the center play was last year to what we thought it could be this year with him. We were talking about a top 10 center in the league. They moved the drill. As soon as he went down, guys just walked forward 10 yards and kept practicing. But What does that do to a team? Because it certainly felt like it gave him a lift when he was signed and showed up.
Oh, without a doubt, he gave him a lift. When you look at your offensive line, you want to build from middle back. You want to make sure you have a good center that's smart, that's going to be able to get all the linemen lined up and knowing where the protection and where the pressure is coming from. You got to have that quarterback, that trigger guy. So this could be a big loss. Hopefully, it's not as serious as everyone thinks, or maybe hopefully it's not, because this is a big loss. But you've seen this team; it's very resilient. Last year, you don't have two of the best tackles in the league, Money, and you're still in the playoffs. So this organization, they know how to move forward. But when you lose a player like that, of that magnitude, it does hurt your team.
I know. Look, he didn't do it on purpose, but it's just a stupid way to have an injury, right? The fact that Aushika decides to just grab his guy and throw him right into Tyler Biadasz's leg. It's just, it sucks to have seen it work that way. The play is already behind him. It's over. He's just getting physical. Is that something that has a carryover? Does anybody talk to him and say, hey man, don't do that again? Or the guy already feels terrible, but what do you do in that instance? Because again, it was just such a
Not
I don't want to
needed.
say anything
No,
mean. Man, does it suck to see it go like that.
it sucks the mostly because, like you said, Money, it's like it had no indication on the outcome of the play. And you got two guys, you're playing, of course, snap the whistle, but then it's just about trying to be a tough guy. And you got to learn people have to know how to practice, and you got to know how to play in the game. These guys have to realize, you watch the Cowboys, you watch the Saints, and you see around the league, it gets chippy. You saw the Niners last week at practice against the Titans, it get chippy. Guys are fighting. It's just, look, I understand you're practicing against another team. I understand they're not necessarily your teammates, but they're still your brothers. This is a job. And that's what these guys and these coaches and the guys have to realize. This is a job, and you all are getting paid. And when you're practicing and when you're playing a game, you can't do things that are stupid and foolish like that. And he, like you said, it wasn't intentional, didn't mean to, but he meant it to throw him down. He meant to roughhouse. He meant to show, hey, look, I'm big and strong, and I'm going to do it. And that's the thing. And guys, and what they don't realize is the play's already done. You're not affecting it. Now that's your ego. That's selfishness and saying, I'm going to show you that I'm stronger. Now you got other guys that are stopping because the play's by them, and you throw them into someone's leg. And that's what's horrible about it. I understand. And yeah, he didn't mean to do it, but when you see plays end in that way where a guy's not engaged and it has nothing bearing on the outcome of the play, and you see a guy possibly lost for the season, it does. It sickens you.
Yeah,
It sickens
I
you.
mean, and I guess the thing for me is you talk to offensive linemen, man, and they are all so conscious of it. It's like, there's big bodies moving in there, man, and you're just trying to keep your feet out of the wash and try to get out of there safe. And it's not like he's a tackle on an island and he's running his guy outside. I mean, he is a guard that's pulling, and he throws his guy right into the. It's like, that is the area where these injuries happen, where tackles get rolled up on, where centers and guards get their knees collapsed. Like, it just, you can't undo it, but man, is it a tough, it's a tough look.
It really is. It's very tough. And I think John Lynch and Shanahan, this Niner organization, it's classy too. And hopefully, the D-line coaches, they'll
Yep.
talk to these guys, say, guys, we can't do that. That's a brother. That's one of your brothers on that other sideline. No matter what, yeah, we want to go against each other, and we'll be able to play hard and play physical and butt guys up and hit them. But when you're throwing guys on the ground, guys, it's just no place for it's hard enough to make it in the league. It's hard enough. Everybody in the league has been hurt, and that's not necessarily injured. And you hate to see injuries because you know it can set guys back. It can mean you lost of a year. It can mean the difference between playoffs and Super Bowl. And when you lose guys on nonsense, on a play that's just about yourself, it vexes you. It's upsetting, and hopefully this young man learns from that. But no matter what we do and how we talk about it, you can't undo it, and that's what's sad because this Charger team, we know it's been injury plagued, and you don't even play a game. You're not even in the regular season, and you lose one of the top 10 centers, and that's tall cotton when you say you have one of the top 10 centers in this league. What that does for the offensive line, a guy who makes the call, guys who make sure guys are ready to go. It's a big blow. It's a big blow.
Yeah. And like I said, it's got to be terrible for Alshika in the Charger locker room. I mean, he was supposed to be the starting guard next to Tyler Biadasz, and now because he decided to chuck a guy, his starting center is not going to be there, we think, at least for a while. Like, we don't, again, it's Wednesday, so I don't know, what and I'm hoping that it's just a sprained MCL or something. But I know Mike Garafolo, who I respect a lot as an insider, reported earlier on NFL Network today that he heard it's multiple ligaments and they're hoping it's not the full season. That's what he reported. I have not heard that. I don't like reaching out when it comes to injuries. I'm just sensitive to it. I don't want to ask. I'll just wait to see the news. So that's why I don't have it. And that's what he's reporting, but we'll see. So, if you want to look, like I said, he went down and the drill moved. And as soon as he went down, Jake Slaughter, their second-round pick, was immediately inserted as the starting center. And I guess this is where, and I hate that it worked out this way. I didn't want to see him take a single snap at center this season because I was so excited about Tyler Biadasz. But this is where, the vision of Joe Ortiz in the front office ends up paying off, where instead of just taking the guard, they take a guy that they thought had center guard flexibility. And Jake was the number one center on their board. And he was, one of the top, if not the top center on a lot of boards in this draft. And they had the idea of pushing him out to left guard and having some center flexibility there in case something happened. And now it works out where, I think I don't remember what pick he was, but he's second-round pick. Second-round picks are expected to play. Tuli's second-round pick. These guys, Trey Harris, second-round pick. These dudes are expected to make an impact, and now looks like he's going to be their starting center.
It does, money. And here's the deal. What I hate about it doesn't do this team the service that it deserved. It does this team a disservice because now you're talking about a guy like Tierra Edwards, who freaking great play against the Texans that you're thinking about maybe keeping 6 diva linesmen or 5. It throws the flow, what you can do. You know what I mean? So when you have, now you're going to say, okay, now we got to go get a center that is not maybe going to do what Edwards or what other guys that can do on this team, that now you may have to make a cut. And you're talking about, Johnson, you've seen the way that he played as a running back who was his second year. So what does that do when now you're thinking about keeping 4 or 3 backs or 4 backs, and now you have to change and alter the way you think because it's for the good of the team. And that's the part to me that I don't think fans and people understand what it does to the whole chemistry of football teams.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, like, you want to know what the impact is, just, look to the money. And I'm at, the FanDuel Sportsbook right now, and what am I staring at? I'm staring at the Chargers, who went from plus 1,600 to win the Super Bowl to plus 1,800. So, they over there believe, they are now behind the Patriots. They're behind the Texans. They were ahead of so they are now, they were right behind the Bills and the Ravens in the AFC. They are now behind the Chiefs, Patriots, Texans after that injury to Tyler Biadasz. So can they overcome it? You said it earlier. Of course. They overcame having to play their 6th and 7th tackle, for parts of the season to the tune of 11 wins. And I think it's a big hit, but if Jake Slaughter is what Joe Ortiz said he is, and what that front office said, he's this blue star player. This is my guy. You get to put one blue star on one player in an entire draft. Joe Ortiz put his blue star on Jake Slaughter, and he said, I wasn't the only one that had the blue star. You can have multiple blue star. Everybody gets one. You don't know what player they're going to be stuck on. And Joe said it was his, and he also said that somebody else in the organization in the front office put their blue star on Jake. So I had a chance to chat with him yesterday, and he actually went to he was at the presser, so he had his individual presser yesterday. It timed out that way. It was set that way before the injury. It just happened to work out that the injury happened, and now Jake's answering questions about being the starting center. And clearly, he's a very smart guy, captain of the Florida team, someone who didn't take a single snap off, even though their season went sideways in a hurry.
Right.
He's the right kind of guy, and he's got the makeup. I just think we got to figure out whether or not he's got the ability to do it. Yesterday, when he was it happened early. The Biadasz injury happened early, and I thought Jake had a couple really good snaps, and I thought he had a couple tough snaps. Odigizua got him once, real good. A couple holding penalties in there, a couple quick wins for the defense. But I think you also have to bake a little bit of holy cow, this is really happening into that, right?
Yeah, you not just that money. You have to bake that in and bake that. Hey, this guy now went from being a backup that's jumping in the fire, that's jumping in with the starters, guys that he didn't think he's going to see, guys you think, okay, I'll take a couple snaps with them preseason. You're going to go with the twos. You're not really the mindset. And that's what this is about. So he goes from being cold to thinking that he's watching Biadasz play. And he's like, all right, okay. He's learning from him, asking in the meeting room, what do you do here? How do you quick set a guy? How do you jump here? What are you doing? So he's learning. This was it that he was saying, hey, look, I'm going to learn this year. I know this is his job, 1 or 2 years, maybe 3. And I know that transition where I slide him because he's a rookie.
Yeah.
Now you're forcing this. What's the mindset? That is going to be huge because you got to grow up. And that's the pressure. And that's why now that these guys say, hey, okay, you guess what? You're on the crash course now. You can no longer sit back and say, oh, we got to be patient with this guy. You have to make him uncomfortable. And that's the thing that we're going to see is Ortiz and these guys and Harbaugh. Can this team make him uncomfortable to become great? Can they make him uncomfortable to become serviceable? Can they make him uncomfortable to go out there and be able to do his job and do it not great, but not just great, but just good. It be good. You don't got to be great, but you got to be good. You got to stay up. You got to stay on your feet. You got to understand the fundamentals. You got to be going from bad now to good and serviceable. And that's what they're looking. That's what this is about for this team. That's what this is about. This is for this young guy. I remember being a rookie. And you know what? I wasn't, I wanted to play. I was 4th round, but I'm like, look, I want to go in here and play. I'm watching football. You're in college. You're in high school. You watch guys. You know the position you play. Don't think that these guys don't know who every lineman doing there, especially college, watching in the pros, because you're looking and saying, I want to play that position. We had Brad Muster. I knew he was in Chicago Bears. I knew that he was there. I knew Ironhead was getting, that left the Saints, went to Atlanta. I knew Brad Muster was coming as a starter, but I was underneath Brad. Brad was a great teacher from Stanford. Brad Muster. So I'm watching him, understanding it, teaching me certain things. It was unreal to have, especially when you got not just a guy, but a smart guy, a guy that's a student of the game. Brad was one of the first guys into meetings, the last guy to leave, talking to Coach Skip, lining things up, going through and I'm like, wow, I'm watching a player is a player coach. And when I watched it, I thought, my goodness, I'm sitting with Brad. How do you know this? Where are you looking at? What does it take? That's the kind of guys that you're around with the Chargers. That's what you lost in a center that was helping. But I knew once Brad went down, that clock had to switch. I went from, okay, now forget that. I'm not backing up. I'm in the game. I have to be on it. So it's tough, but cream rises to the top.
Yeah. And I do think some of the things that got Jake drafted are what could benefit him, and again, it was a lot of mental makeup, impressive in the meeting, captain, leader of the team, that sort of stuff. And I do think in the game against the Texans, while I think there was some good and there were some challenges, the good was he could see it. And we know from that left guard spot, man, there was some good last year, but the guy couldn't see it. And those stunts were coming in unimpeded time and time again. And in that Texans game, you can see at the very least, Jay can pick up a stunt. He sees it, and he's good like that. So I think that bodes well.
He's competent.
Yeah.
He
Yeah,
knows football, so it's not going to be from if he gets beat, it's not from lack of effort, and it's not from not knowing what to do.
right.
It's maybe lack of physical, till he
Yes.
grows into his body.
He's a little light.
Yeah,
He's, when
yeah,
you and look, it's easy to look light on that line when you've got Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater
monster.
and, and again, it's a different line too. I think that's the other thing to remember. These guys are, as coach says, jump off the ball. That ball is snapped and they are going. It's a little bit different than running gap and duo, and you're anchoring and you're trying to
Right,
move
right,
bodies, and it's just different. Athleticism comes into the play. The one thing, you said it, and I do think if there was a red flag on Jake coming out of Florida, he's on the ground a lot. And I think that's something that certainly they're working on with him, I'm sure. And you can't be on the ground.
no,
That's a non-negotiable. But I thought you put it best, Lo. It's something that we've talked about in the past here. You look, is it nice to be elite? Yeah. Joe Alt, Rashawn Slater, elite. I mean,
elite.
look at the protector of the year odds. Joe Alt's on the board. And when you think about, when you look at FanDuel and the offensive line, and I know it's not the most popular prop, everybody wants to talk about MVP and offensive player of the year and coach of the year and things like that. But last year, first year protector of the year, and Joe Alt is on that list. And so when you have at least an anchor on the offensive line, you see it here. Panay is the prohibitive favorite at plus 460, followed by Wirfs, Bowles, the center, Creed Humphrey for Kansas City. And then there's Alt, ahead of Pro Bowlers, ahead of all pros, Trent Williams, Jordan Mailata, Lane Johnson. So you got Alt. Slater is we talked about, he had his presser. No, I don't think we have talked about it because that was late last week. We had already done the episode. Slater had mentioned, yeah, I'm probably not going to be doing a lot of practicing. We're just kind of pointing towards September 13th.
Right.
So he said, if games were being played right now, I'd be playing. He goes, that's what Rashawn told us. He's like, I'd be out there, but we're not, and we're going to be really, really careful about this. And that's the plan. So if you still have Alt and Slater on September 13th when the Cardinals come to town, then you feel better about it, and you still have Mike McDaniel calling the plays, and you still have those tight ends and that fullback and Alec Ingold and Charlie Kolar. David Njoku had a really nice block yesterday. By the way, yesterday, man, just before I get off Joe Alt.
Yeah.
I think he carried Fred Warner. I'm going to say he carried him at least 8 yards, maybe 10 or 12. And he got out there, shoved his D lineman, got his hands on Warner, and just walked him like he was nothing. I was like, okay, Joe, we got you.
I see you, Joe. I see you, baby.
And he had Keaton Mitchell running behind him. And, once he got his hands on Warner, Keaton was able to bounce it and get an extra 10, 15 yards and end up being an explosive probably for 20 plus yards. And, it's different. It's practices, but they're going, man. And Joe dusted his guy and got to that second level, and it was impressive. And then Omarion had a couple too, where you know what? Let me pull up the our lads here, the depth chart for the 49ers.
It's great because Omarion knows that he has help at the running back position, and he knows these other guys they're good, and so it's going to make him play. It's going to make Omarion play even. It's sort of like LT with Michael Turner and freaking Darren Sproles. When you have guys that that are capable, and you're like, okay, you're happy for them, but you're like, hey, I better get back in the game because these guys are liable to bust 1-2 and break 1-2. Right. So Omarion has a good amount of backs that's going to help out this year.
So Omarion, poor Jair Brown, holy man, he knocked him in tomorrow. As they like to say, Jair got in that alley and he wasn't ready for what was coming, and he put him on his back. And then the rookie that they're excited about up in San Francisco, Jaden Duggar, who goes 6'5", 242, put him on his back. Omarion brought some thump, ran right over him, just straight through him, right over him.
Wow. Marion's a big boy, man, and he's running fast and hard. And he's going to spring some necks, and he's going to make some guys make a business decision. I better try to get this guy down by the ankles. Money, we talk about this devastating loss here for the Chargers, possibly could be for the year. When you look at this organization, when you just think, of course, they like to make moves. And is it too early? But when you're going into this season, can you go into this season with this center. Because not that he's not, no disrespect, not that he won't be a great player.
Yeah.
You've seen him get the green dot, all these different things you've seen him do in college, captain, fighter. We know that he has the tangibles. But is there something? Do you think there's a trade? You think there's something because of the fact that Chargers expectations for this team and this organization, you need more?
I'm looking right now.
Yeah.
There's no one out there. So
No.
there's no one out there that is. I don't think there's any. I just don't.
You don't see anything that just says, okay.
I'm looking and I don't really. Yeah, I don't see anyone that's available. I think it would just be Will Clapp's out there, who was a Charger for a minute. He's 31. I thought he played okay.
Yeah.
When he was on the Chargers.
Do we have enough? Don't you think
I don't think they can go into the season with Jake as the starter and either Colton Berger and Spomer as the only backup.
Okay.
I think you're definitely going to be looking, and I don't, and I have not had time to go through.
No, of course you didn't.
This
happened yesterday. Of course, you ain't gonna have time to go through it. It's just, but you just to be optimistic to say, hey, look, I think they got enough. Can they switch a guard over? Can they get through this line? Can they get through this season? But I don't think this is a team that's trying to say, I'm getting through the season. We just want to get through the season. This is a team that is destined for greatness. And if everyone's healthy, or you have some competent people, and just with the guard being a little shaky, left guard being a little shaky, now necessarily the center could possibly be a little shaky. Is that enough? Because we've seen when two sides is a little shaky, we've seen what that could do, especially when you have a Pro Bowl or possibly MVP type of quarterback with the weapons around him this year in the skill position, running back, receiver, tight end. Can you do it? Can you afford to have two?
To me, I think it's I could make and I'm not talking about the talent.
Sure.
I'm talking about the position. Understand when I say this. I'm not talking about the talent. It's like, losing Joe Alt or Rashawn Slater would be a bigger hit. But I just think the position, I think it's the worst spot on the offensive line where you could have lost someone. Because I think if Joe or Rashawn go down, it's not ideal, but you still have the other one, and you feel pretty good about, Trey, and really more about Travis Burke and just what he showed in that game against Houston. And Coach said it in his presser yesterday. He goes, starting caliber tackle. He goes, I'm saying that he said we have two rookies. When he was asked about the left guard competition, he said, I believe we have two rookies that can start on teams in the NFL, and that's Travis Burke and that's Jake Slaughter. So the good news is his coach had said that before this injury. So he believes Jake is a starting caliber center. So that's good news. But then I think you talk about depth. Like if you have a tackle situation, you have Travis Burke, you have Trey. Branson Taylor has shown some good flexibility. If you have a guard go down, you have this competition going where you feel pretty good about Slaughter at guard, Oshika, and Logan Taylor. Like Branson Taylor. I'm sorry, Branson Taylor. So you've got three guys there with some depth, and you have a rookie that I think has a very realistic shot of making this team, and Logan Taylor, because of his 4-position flexibility along that line. Like center, they were planning on having Jake play left guard. Like there's, and Spomer's looked pretty good. He's just small. But you can have a small center in this offense.
Yeah, you can, because you're running, you're getting in position. Yeah. So that's the thing that can help, because you're running. Hypothetically,
and that's your guy, Lo. Spomer's your guy from Fresno State.
No, baby. Spomer's going to play. He's going to be a guy that's going to compete. You know that. He's going to compete. Tell me, Money, is it possible or not probable that you look at this, if I'm putting you in the coach's seat or as a GM, and I said, coach comes up to you and said, hey, Money, you're the GM or you're the head coach. What about moving Slater into guard? You're talking about the rookie. He can start in this league as tackle. Does that solidify? Is that a better, or you think Slater better at serving at tackle?
I think he's better at tackle. I think Slater's better at tackle, because I don't think you want to change anything on him with that knee. Just kind of keep that stuff comfortable as he's coming back from that patellar, So I think for that, I did have somebody I brought this up and everyone got upset with me. And I'm like, guys, I'm not saying I want to move Rashawn Slater to center. I'm telling you, I was talking to a coach who said, I think if you put Slater at center, he'd be the best center in the league. I just had somebody to say that to me. That's all I brought up way back when. And I was like, that's all. I was like, he's a tackle. He's an all-pro tackle. He's a Pro Bowl tackle. And I think he has all-pro capability. And you don't pull that guy off the left tackle, settling Herbert to not think twice about his blind side because he's got Slater over there. Like, you don't want to – I don't think you intentionally want to introduce – sort of concern to that spot for Herbert.
Money, I don't know why people get mad. I don't think people should get mad at you when you're being, here's the deal. He's that talented. That's not a negative thing. That's a talent. That's a positive thing, because now you can move Joe Alt over to the blind side. You're talking about a rookie's ready to play. Yeah. There is some way. So I don't think, I'm gonna tell you, Money, for you to say that. Don't think that people aren't talking about it. That's in coaches' offices. Don't think that the Chargers aren't looking at different combinations. They're smart men. These are coaches. And you're saying, shoot, could this guy do it? Hey, take some stuff. If it solidifies when you have a rookie that would be starting on 10 out of 32 teams or more that could start at tackle, and now I can put an all-pro tackle into center who's quick, fast, can run, strong. And did I make my line better? Did I make it more balanced? So I don't think when people say, "Oh, you're crazy,"
interesting.
You're not crazy. That's football.
No, it's not. And that's what when we asked about Trey Pipkins at left guard, coach said, "I think he's one of our best five." It's like, I think Trey's one of our best five, and we want our best five out there. And so it's definitely interesting. I didn't think about it till you just brought it up, and now that conversation is coming back to me. And if your best five, oh man,
you're like, I don't want to do this, but no, don't think they're not thinking about.
Yeah,
let's move on.
I'm going through I was busy going through all the Shanahan offense, who's out here, where's our depth at center, on the Rams, on the 49ers, on the Packers. Like, can I find anyone that might fit? And it's offensive line, man. There's no one anywhere.
No,
like, it's just
they don't grow those guys on trees.
Yeah, that's why, going back to your the point that you made about geez, why am I losing my track of thought here? About the roster construction, when you were like, this can now, like, when we asked Mike McDaniel, he said, I usually operate off the number 10. He goes, I like the idea of 10. And then when I say 10, it could be 11, could be 9. He's like, but I like to visualize offensive line roster construction at 10. And I think when you look at this team, it was easy to visualize an 11th player not making it and not making it through waivers. And so now I think without Biadasz, and when you look at Rashawn, Aushika, Cole Strange, Alt, Slaughter, there's your starting five. Right behind them, Travis Burke, Branson Taylor, Trey Pipkins. And now I think that introduces Logan Taylor, and you're going to have to keep a backup center. So is that Spomer? Is that, I don't know. I think that's, and now that brings that 11th player into play, because you might have to go out and snatch up a player. And now that Jake's not a possible left guard guy, now you've got to kind of think about depth at left guard and at center if he was going to be that backup. And so that's what that introduces. And I think that's why I think kind of the roster, you brought up T.R. Edwards, who had a great game against the Texans. He had a great preseason last year.
Yeah.
I think he makes it. I really do. I think that's one where you have a very hard conversation about some other position groups. And the first one I'm thinking of is wide receiver, and how you may be able to replicate what some wide receivers do in other facets of the game to say, hey, if we T-Rod, Edward, he's not making it through. He's not. There's no way. It's a premium position. He's not making it through.
No,
they were able to, and they invested so. Mike Elston and his staff invested so much time in him in developing him last year as an undrafted free agent on the practice squad, called up a couple times. And especially if he does it again. If he does it again against San Francisco, if they're going to play starters a little bit. And even if they don't, if he just does it and he's a 2 and they're a 2, or he's a 3 and they're a 3, and he's dominating like he did against the Texans, that guy's not making it through. So I think that's one that I think both lines, man. Line play is hard. It's just hard to find guys. And so I think that's one where you're like, yeah, we can sacrifice a wide receiver. We can sacrifice a linebacker. It's hard to sacrifice an O-line or a D-lineman.
It really is, and especially in this league, because of the guys, the size, like you're talking about, these guys, it's hard to find quality offensive line. You can go get guys, big body, but they don't have feet, because you have to realize, and people don't talk about this enough, Joe Alt is athletic. Slater are athletic. You have to realize it's a huge disadvantage. Offensive lineman usually is not as athletic as defensive linemen. Defensive linemen are a lot more twitchy, a lot more, and you're asking these big slugs to keep up with guys that are usually a little bit lighter, a little bit quicker, a little bit quicker on their feet. So when you're talking about offensive line, it is very hard to get the quality of offensive line to keep up with the defensive linemen and what the league has, how the game has changed.
Yeah. And again, I think with how the game has changed fits into the style of offense. Yeah. And that it's a different style. Like I'm on the Miami depth chart. Aaron Brewer's 290. He was the first team All-Pro last year at center for Mike McDaniel and the Miami Dolphins. His backup is 6'3", 290. So maybe the weight of Jake that looked to affect him at guard, it doesn't affect him at center. He plays at an incredibly high level, and now you're just out shopping for a backup. You're out. You don't have to worry about that starting level, because now Jake's got almost a month. Yesterday was the 18th. Their first game's on the 13th. So now he's got a month to get settled in, to build that chemistry with Justin, and to get ready for the Cardinals on the 13th.
Styles make fights, money.
Yeah.
Styles make fights. And you remember Hilgenberg's brothers back in the day, like 260, 270. Jay, and that's the thing that is on his side. You have to be able to run, reach guys, move. So it's not necessarily a man type of offense where you got to sit there and push guys. And that's why you saw him on the ground a lot, because he's trying to stay so low to create a new line of scrimmage. But now he's going to be able to run and be up a little bit more. So, hey, get on that jump rope 3 or 4 minutes a day. But you're able to run and get guys out in space and be able to hook guys and reach guys. So it doesn't necessarily need the physicality, but more finesse and quickness. So maybe this will help him just, stay off the ground a little bit more.
Yeah. It's a bummer, because things have been going so well that we've committed pretty much the entire episode to it. But I know. Just, to lift some folks up, let me get through some stuff from the joint practice here, because there was a lot of good in there. And I'll tell you, like I mentioned, Omarion, physicality, jumped off the page. Keaton Mitchell's speed out of the backfield. The run game really looked good. I just stayed where offense was. I wanted to watch Mike McDaniel's offense and Justin Herbert against the San Francisco defense. So I spent my whole time over there, and it's where they had the replay monitor. So I know, reading some of the stuff from the 49ers media, it sounded like their offense was having their way with the Chargers defense as well. I did notice toward the end, though, there was, I think, maybe a pick or something in the end zone in a red zone drill. But so, like, what I saw, both they were running 22 with Golar and Njoku, and that was the one I was talking about, when Njoku got a real nice block out there and it popped 34. That was the same one that Joe carried Fred Warner some 10 yards. Mentioned Keaton Mitchell as well, had a nice jump cut. Didn't really see a lot of Kamani Vidal. So I think as you're trying to figure out that running back room, it most definitely looks like Omarion, Keaton, or because Keaton wasn't just in there as a third down guy, as a pass catching back. He was getting quite a bit of work. There's 63. Hate that one. Okay, here we go. Back to back, 89. Got behind the defense on 2 separate go balls and touchdowns on both. And that's what we're talking about with Brenen Thompson. That 4.2 speed showed up. got one from Justin against the ones, and then he got one from DJ against the twos or the threes. And that stuff, like we said, when you're like DJ put a good post out there about, be careful with preseason. He goes, what scouts are looking at is not what is happening in the game as much or what the box score might say. It's traits. It's the way they fit. It's more that stuff. He mentioned in Baltimore, they had a guy who in the final preseason game had 2 sacks, a fumble recovery, and all that sort of stuff. He said, we cut him at 7 a.m. the next morning. He's like, it's just, that stuff. So when you're in practice and it's a joint practice and they're going full speed against ones and you're seeing 89 out there dusting corners and going for touchdowns with that Herbert arm, I do think he's going to get some action, man. I'd be very surprised if Brenen Thompson wasn't more than just hey, let's sprinkle him in a little bit. I could see him getting some reps in those 3 receiver sets with Q and with Ladd. If they want, it's not always going to be Trey Harris. I do think you're going to get quite a bit of Brenen Thompson in there in those 3 receiver sets.
Oh, without a doubt. And you can't sit back and play zone. You can't sit back and play, cover 2 because you got too much speed and you got too much stuff. So you can't play necessarily man on a guy with that type of speed. You got to pay some covers over the top because he'll take the top off the building. So you are going to have to play a zone on him, man, some other coverage. So you're going to have some motions and different things that's going to have some defenses with the way that the offensive coordinator, calls the plays. You're going to have defenses kind of like, getting caught with their shorts down because of the fact once they motion across, who's going to rock back to play zone over the top. So you're going to see some big plays. And these guys, these receivers, you watched, KLS the other day, watching his hands against the Texans. You see the way that he's comfortable after second year. So now, going to second year, you're seeing this receiving core with McConkey. This team is going to be something to reckon with. Yeah. Just can't have these injury bugs.
Yeah, and I think it's, like you mentioned McConkey and Q and Trey and now Brenen Thompson and Charlie Kolar had a big grab. David Njoku had a huge grab in the game. And even there was I think it was a sale route. I want to say it was a sale route for Ingold that probably went for 2025. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think he was attached and he just kind of sailed there. Yeah. That stuff, there's so, but you got to make sure Herbert can stand up. You got to make sure that protection is there. I would do more on the defensive side. I think just against the Texans, what I would say is Mike Elston. I think this is what I posted on Instagram. I said, Mike Elston's a wizard, man. The guy it doesn't matter what you give him, who you give him. He is such a good defensive line coach. Whether it's Poona Ford, who couldn't find his way on the field in Buffalo, and next thing you know, guy's got a $30 million contract. Tier Tart, who's cut by the Texans, cut by the Dolphins, comes here, 3-year, $30 million deal, one of the better tackles in the league. And then you see Jamari Caldwell. Oh, that was a reach in the 3rd round. Wow, Jamari Caldwell is one of the steals of the draft. It just doesn't matter what he's given. And I think it's what's fun about watching how good, when I go through the Chargers, when I was going through the film, I was blown away. I'm like, this is, and I just want to make sure I get everybody included because the 2 that jumped out were Terry Webb and Tyree Edwards. But then I'm looking at Andre Carter he's an outside linebacker, so that's Dylan Roney. But Jameer Carter, 61 and 64 were out there together, man, and they were wrecking shop. Wow. Guillory had a couple big plays. That to me is the one where I think you get the extra. You get the extra player. You're going to end up. You thought you were going to get 4. And I think, I'm sorry, you thought you were going to get 5, and I think you're going to get 6. I think T-Rod gets in there with Nick Barrett, Aboigbe, Tart, Tomlinson, and Caldwell. I think and maybe it means sacrificing an edge, that you were thinking about keeping Dame or you were thinking about keeping Kennard, and maybe that's where that piece gets removed. Or maybe it's the linebacker room where I really wasn't counting on 6 anyway. I thought that's probably more of a 5-person room. So it's going to be fun to watch tomorrow. We're doing this on a Wednesday, and it's going to be really fun to watch that game and see if they can kind of pick up where they left off against the Texans. Starters are going to get a series. So both sides of the ball, they're going to get 1 series defense, 1 series offense. You'd love to see them march down the field, punch it in, make it look great, and then take it off, throw on the headset, stare at your little call sheet on your wrist, and have some fun.
Absolutely. I can't wait either. You watch, watching, I think Stribbler with the Niners. You watch the way
Stribbling, yeah, he looked good.
Yeah, Stribbling, he looked good, range. And so it'd be good to see how the corner is going to match up against him. And, you know, this is always a great preseason game. You know, this is the second game, second dress rehearsal. Get a series out of these guys and then sit back. And it is fun to watch the young guys trying to make a team get out there and play. So I'm excited about watching as well.
Yeah. So we'll recap it next week, and hopefully we'll get good news on Tyler. And it's not what Mike Garafolo reported this morning, but something much less. Like I said, may it be a grade 1 MCL sprain, and he's back in 2 to 6 weeks. That's what I'm hoping for as we're recording this right now. In the meantime, big thank you to Lindsay for putting it together. Big thank you to FanDuel for putting it on. Big thank you to Lo, and we'll be back next week. Until then,
bolt up.
Bolt up.